Welcome to a new Moho video. Today we will talk about the basic tools. But first I would like to invite you to subscribe and hit the like button if you like Moho, because I'll be uploading the second class explaining how to draw and some other news about Moho. Also remember that you can turn on the subtitles for multiple languages, and if you want any other that isn't listed, let me know. So, without further ado, let's get started. As you will see when you open Moho, you will find the Tools panel on the left, the Animation panel at the bottom, and to the right there is the Layers and Colors panel. So, to start a new project, we will simply go to File, New. Doing this, we will have our first project, and also the first layer, which will be empty. Okay. Our first tool is the Select Point tool, or G key, which will help us select the objects and vertices that we will work on. Remember that each tool that we select will always display an option menu at the top. In this case, we will see that I have the lasso mode option selected, and this will allow us to select the vertices in a freer way. If we turn off this option, we will see that the selection method changes to the standard mode. The lasso tool is always recommended to select the most difficult objects or vertices, otherwise you can always use the traditional way. The third tool is the Add Point, or A key. This is already a drawing tool, and as we can see, it offers us 4 options: Auto Weld, Auto Fill, Auto Stroke, and Sharp Corners. Let's do a test and just draw with the first 2 options selected. It is important to know that if we only click, drag and release, moving our mouse, we will only generate lines. So, if we want to draw a shape, we must click, drag, release the mouse button, and without moving from the place we must click again and drag to continue. We will see that if we approach to the final point, the first vertex drawn will turn green. This means that both points will be joined and the figure will be completely closed. As we can see, the default color of our shape is the colors that we have in the Style panel. Always remember that if you have the Autofill and Auto Weld option, you can draw any shape and it will be closed by joining the endpoints and will have the color you have in your Style menu. If we deactivate the Auto Weld option, the last vertices will not be joined. But they will be able to join simply by activating this option again and closing the figure. For example, if we deactivate the autofill option, when we close our shape, it will be empty. We still can paint it, but we will see that in a minute. Okay, if we select the auto stroke option, this will add a line to the edge of our shape. We can go to the stroke menu and change the color. Let's choose a red one. Perfect, now we have a white shape with a red borderline. The last option is the sharp corners. This will simply allow us to draw straight lines. But let's look at the next tool called Curvature, or C key. As we can see, it has 2 options, Peak and Smooth. Okay, if we select all the 4 vertices of our object, and then we go to the Curvature tool and hit Smooth, we'll see that all of our vertices will be smoothed. When we select our object, we will see that each vertex will have 2 nodes, which will allow us to modify the curvature. If we simply have a vertex selected and we click on Peak, we will see that these nodes will disappear and also the curvature. But if we click on that vertex and drag, we can create our own curvature. If we select all the vertices at the same time and then the Peak option, we will have all the straight angles again. We can simply go from straight angles to curved angles by clicking on these 2 buttons, or simply by dragging the mouse with the selected curvature tool. The Reset button will always return our object to the original state. Okay, let's see our next tool, the Freehand tool, or F key. With this tool, we will be able to draw freely, and we will also have the options of Auto Fill, Auto Close, and Auto Stroke as in the Select Point tool. This tool will allow us to draw more freely, and as you can see when we close our object, it will also have a fill color and a border color. As we can see in the upper menu, inside the Freehand Options button, we will have more options that we can customize, mainly for those who work with a drawing tablet. In my case, I use the pen pressure option, which allows me to generate thinner or thicker strokes depending on the pressure of the pen. Remember that this option does not work if we are working with a mouse. Actually, this is a tool I don't use very often. Generally, I prefer to draw using vectors with the Add Point tool to have more control of the drawing and the number of vertices that I create. The smoothing tool will help us to have a more fluid stroke when we are drawing, mainly if we do not have a very steady hand. With this tool, we can draw a basic object which we can then modify by adjusting its vertices like any other object. An important detail that we must remember when we are drawing is to know how to rotate our image vertically and horizontally. To do this, we can go to the Transform Points tool, or the T key. Then we will find at the end of the upper menu two buttons to flip our image horizontally or vertically. If we have our object selected, we can just click any of these buttons and flip it. This tool is very useful because we can draw an arm, a leg, an ear, or an eye, duplicate it and just flip it, and this will save us a lot of time. Okay, let's continue. Now we have the Draw Shape tool, or S key. This tool is very simple to use and it will allow us to draw basic figures. But first, let's create a simple background. Okay, now let's choose a background color. Now, let's pay attention to our first layer, which is currently empty. Let's draw our background, which will occupy the entire workspace. Let's try using a slightly darker color first. Okay, now this background is going to be part of the first layer. Clicking on the name will allow us to change it. Let's just call it background. If we click on the eyes icon, we can deactivate and activate this layer. This will allow us to hide the layer whenever we want. If we go to the button, New Layer, we will see a menu of options that we will analyze later. For now, we are just going to click on Vector. As you can see, now we have an empty layer. Okay, let's create a new object, but first, we are going to choose a different color. We don't want to create a new object with the same color as the background. Okay, now we can draw our object, and for this, I will use the Add Point tool. Perfect, now this object will be part of our new layer. Let's continue with the Erase tool, or E key. As its name says, this tool will allow us to delete parts of our object. But we must be careful since it can generate new vertices. Depending on the case, sometimes it is better to delete the vertices one by one to avoid problems and to have more control over our work. Okay, another of our tools is the point reduction, or our key. To see how it works, first I'm going to add some vertices. As its name indicates, if we have many vertices in our object, this tool will remove the excess. Personally, for me it is more useful to delete the points one by one, or selecting them with the Select Point tool, mainly if your work has a lot of details. You don't want to end up deleting vertices that are okay. So, let's draw a new figure. Another tool is the Scatter Brush. This tool is interesting to create certain patterns, but we will see this later. Let's look at our next tool, which is the Perspective Points. This tool is used to rotate our objects to get a perspective similar to a 3D object. It is very useful to draw squares, rooms, or backgrounds that need a certain perspective. But just remember, using the Perspective tool does not make our object 3D. If we click on the button Orbit, or the 9th key, we can see our entire scene, and we will see that even changing the perspective our object continues as a 2D object. So, To return to our previous perspective, we simply have to click on the button that appears in the upper menu, Reset View. The Shear Points tool is very similar to the Perspective tool. Both will help us to create objects in different perspectives. Okay, let's continue. The Bend Points tool will simply help us to bend our objects, which can be useful when we are animating organic objects, or perhaps to generate small movements in our characters. It can be very useful when we are animating flowers, trees, or trying to simulate the movement of the wind. Let's now take a look at the Fill tools. For this, we are going to create a new shape, but this time we will remove the Autofill option. As you can see, it is completely empty. To paint it, we can just click on the Fill option, which also applies to our borderline in case we want to erase it or use it again. Okay, the Select Shape tool, or Q key, will help us to change the color of our object. If we click on it, we will see the fill color and the stroke color on the upper menu and also in our style menu on the right. We can work with any of both panels because the result will be the same. So, knowing this, we can click on any of them to choose our new color. Okay, now let's use the Create Shape tool, or U key. Imagine that you want to add a new part to our current shape. We will simply draw it starting from the edge, and we will close it by bringing the vector also closer to the edge till we hear a snap. Okay, once it's closed, we'll see that the new shape is attached to our main shape, but it's empty. So, let's click on the Create Shape button, then click on our new shape borderline, and last just click on the Create Shape button at the top. Now this new figure is part of our main shape. Actually, it looks like an ear, so let's draw another one on the other side and let's practice. First we draw. Then we click on the Create Shape button, but this time, let's see what happens if we click on the top button to create our shape. It doesn't work. Let's see if we select our entire shape then. It doesn't work either. Remember that you should always select the new figure by clicking on the border. Once it is selected, yes, we can click on the Create Shape button. As we can see, we can also select each of these objects separately, but at the same time they are all joined. Let's look at our next tool, the Paint Bucket, or P key. So, let's click it, and then paint over our figure. As you can see, now it has the same color that I was using before. But notice that the object we want to paint is automatically selected, and that's great. We just only have to choose our new color and paint. Let's repeat the process with the right ear. But this time we are going to first select the color we want. Once we have it, we will simply click where we want to paint. This is an amazing tool, and it is very simple and intuitive to use. If you are enjoying this tutorial, subscribe, give a like and hit the bell, because I will be uploading the next Moho class pretty soon and we will start working on our first drawing created entirely in Moho. And leave in the comments what is your favorite cartoon, your favorite artist, or what character would you like to draw and animate in Moho. Okay, let's take a look to the next tool called Delete Shape. This tool will remove our border color and fill color, but not our object. So, that means that we can paint it again if we want with the Bucket tool. If you want to just turn off the fill color, remember that you can do that by selecting your object and turning off only the fill color. Our next tool is called Line Width, or W key. This is a tool that I use a lot, and it is the one that will help us to give our borders a greater or lesser thickness. This tool will always take the closest vertex as reference. We just have to position the mouse over our border, click and drag. If we select all the vertices, we can increase the thickness of all of them at the same time. And if we want, we can give each vertex more thickness separately. This will help us to give more definition to our drawings. If you want to see what your work looks like, you can always go to File, Preview. And this will give us a more defined sample of our scene. Perfect. Okay, now imagine that you have some lines and you want to hide them. For example, the lines of the ears. For this, we have the following tool called Hide Edge, or H key. With this tool, we can click on each line that we want to hide, and our object will always remain attached. Let's see how it looks if we make a preview. Here we can see the object, but without the guidelines. The best thing about this tool is that if we want, we can click on our line again to recover it exactly as it was before. By doing this, we will be able to draw our characters using different shapes, and we will be able to hide all the lines that we want at any moment. In the next class, we will also see how to draw, and we will analyze when we should hide certain lines. We will also see how we can use dynamic bones and objects with open lines that can be adapted to certain movements and actions. Okay, let's take a look at the next tool called Stroke Exposure. This tool will help us to create interesting animations using the edge of our objects. As you can see, if you select an object and then drag your mouse, you will see how the borderline moves. Okay, our next tool is called Curve Profile, so let's see how it works. First, let's draw a simple line, but let's give it a little curvature. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. Okay, now select our object and then select the Curve Profile tool button. Now just click on the line you have created. As we can see, the pattern we draw will be applied to our entire object. Even if we move the vertices of our line, this will be applied to our object. We can even select more than one vertex at the same time. This will help us create objects with detailed edges very easily and also very interesting animations. Let's see how it looks. Perfect. Obviously, we always have to be careful with our borders so that everything looks good. We don't want to have areas with very thick or very thin borders when we are working shapes with too many details. If you wish, you can choose only one object and the effect will be applied only to what you have selected. Well, let's see our last drawing tool, which is called Color Points, or K key. To see how it works, let's first select a vertex and then select the color from the top menu. This will allow us to generate different levels of color gradient to achieve better textures in our objects. We can even select more than one vertex to apply this effect. Remember, first we select the points, then the tool, and then the color. If you want to select only some vertices, use the selection tool in lasso mode. This will allow us to choose 1 point or 2 or whatever we need. If you want to remove the gradient you applied, simply select the Color Point tool, select the vertex you want to clear, and hit the Clear button on the top menu. This will allow us to remove this effect at any time. Later in another video, we will talk about the layer and camera tools. As a first class, let's just focus on the basics so you can get started with Moho. Okay, here in our tool panel, we'll see movement tools, which are 3. The first, Pan, can be done by clicking on this button or also by clicking the right mouse button. The zoom can be used by clicking here or simply by turning the mouse wheel. Also, we have the rotation tool, or key 8, which will be able to rotate our entire project. Remember that when you rotate the scene, you can always go back by clicking on the button Reset View in the top menu. Finally, we have the orbit option, which we saw a moment ago, and as we can see, it allows us to see our entire scene. Later we will do some exercises to practice with this tool. Always remember that to return to the normal view, we must click on the Reset View button. Okay, these are the tools that we are going to use in the future, so get ready to draw. But first, I would like to talk a little bit about the layers. Today we only worked with only 2 layers. One for our background and one for our object. If you just want to hide one layer, you only need to turn off the eyes icon. If the layer is turned off, it will not be visible in the preview or in the final render of our animation. And if you want to apply colors to your layers, just click on this square and choose the color you want. This will allow you to separate and organize your layer panel. Believe me, this will be very useful in the future. A tip for those who want to work with rules or helplines. Let's imagine that we want to create a brick wall. If I draw each brick this way, it won't really work, but if we press Ctrl+G, we can activate the Moho grid. Doing this, drawing certain objects will be much easier. We can even copy and paste, and each object will be pasted following the grid. Let's see how it looks. Perfect! In the next video, we will start drawing a character, we will start using bones, smart bones, and in the end, we will create a full animation. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments, and if you liked this video, subscribe, give a like and hit the bell. Soon I will be posting new videos about Moho, ZBrush, Unity, Substance Painter, and more. Also remember that we have several subtitles available, and if you want any other language, just let me know in the comments. For those who are new to my channel, welcome and thanks for being there. And for those who are already part of this family, thank you very much for your support. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you next time.